Most UGC NET aspirants spend months preparing, yet they still miss some of the most frequently asked out topics. And the worst part, these are the very areas that could boost your score and give you an edge over others. You see, when it comes to UGC NET English exam, a lot of students prepare the major areas like British literature, important theorists and the well-known writers. I'm not saying that these areas are not important. They are important because they are frequently asked in the exam and you should prepare them very well. But you must be knowing that UGC NET English exam throws questions from the areas that a lot of students completely ignore. And that's exactly what we are going to do today in this video. I'm going to uncover 5 of the most overlooked yet highly important topics that could be your game changer for your UGC NET English exam preparation. Let's make sure that you do not miss out on these. The first overlooked area that we are going to discuss in this video is Indian aesthetics and classical criticism. If you look at the previous year question papers, you will realize that in the past 5 years or so, there has been an increase in the questions related to Indian aesthetics and classical criticism. So it becomes extremely important to understand this area. And that's what I'm going to do today in this video. I'm going to explain to you a bit about Indian aesthetics, some of the most frequently asked topics, so that you have a basic idea about them and then you can do your own research on these topics later on. The one very frequently asked topic related to Indian aesthetics and classical criticism is Bhartrhari's concept or the theory of sphota. Now, Bhartrhari was a Hindu philosopher and a linguist, and he provided this very phenomenal theory of sphota, which basically contributed to our understanding of the relationship between the sound and the meaning. Right? So according to Bhartrhari, the true meaning of any word, the essence of the word is latent, is hidden. And that true meaning will only flash into your consciousness when you hear the corresponding sounds being uttered. So you see, meaning is not a result of the combination of the individual sounds, but it's something separate. The true meaning of a word, the essence of the word, and the individual sounds being uttered, these are two very separate things. The second most frequently asked and the most important text related to Indian aesthetics and classical criticism is Bharat's Natya Shastra. Bharat's Natya Shastra is a foundational text in understanding Indian drama, Indian performing arts, and Indian aesthetics. It talks about how there are certain emotions, also called as rasas, and how they are evoked amongst the audiences through certain combination of expressions, also called as bhavas. Questions related to Bharat's rasa theory, they are often asked in UGC NET English exam, especially related to his 8 rasas and how they function in drama and poetry. Another important topic associated with Indian aesthetics is Anandavardhana's Dhwani theory. Anandavardhana was a Kashmiri court poet and a literary critic who is popularly known for his work Dhyanaloka. And it is in this particular work that he had introduced his Dhwani theory. So what is this particular theory? Dhwani literally translates to suggestion. According to Anandavardhana, the most profound aesthetic experience in understanding poetry arises from understanding what is implied. From understanding not the explicit meaning, not the meaning that is directly stated to you in the text, but understanding the suggestive meaning. From understanding what could be the possible meaning, and not from what is directly stated in that particular poem. These are some of the most frequently asked topics related to Indian aesthetics and classical criticism. Many students ignore this section, but it is a scoring section if you study it well. Even a basic conceptual understanding like this of these topics can take you a lot far in your journey to crack UGC NET English exam. The second most overlooked area is linguistics and English language teaching. Many students ignore linguistics and ELT thinking that it's too technical, but UGC NET English exam loves to test foundational concepts here. Some of the most frequently asked topics related to this particular area include Noam Chomsky's concepts of competence and performance, where competence refers to the speaker's subconscious knowledge of English language and performance refers to the actual use of English language in real life situations. Something similar to Saussures' concept of langue and parole, right? You will find that Noam Chomsky's concepts of performance and competence were asked in match the following questions or even assertion and reasoning type of questions. Within this section of linguistics and ELT, a lot of questions are repeatedly asked related to certain important literary and linguistic terms like neologism, anaphora, periphrasis, epilogue, epigraph, epigram, and so many more. If you want to understand these linguistic terms and more in detail, then you can check out my video that I have created solely on linguistic terms, whose link I've attached in the description box below. A lot of students also ignore studying the formal features of the text. This is the biggest mistake that they will make in their preparation journey. You should not do that. You should be aware of the formal features of the text, that is meter, rhyme, rhythm. What is a meter? What is a foot? What are the metrical patterns, right? What are some of the most important poetic forms and what is their metrical arrangement that differentiates them from other poetic forms? You should be aware of all of these things because they appear in the exam more often than you think. In addition to these, you should also have a basic conceptual understanding of different teaching methods in ELT, like communicative language teaching, task-based teaching, grammar translation method, and so many more, because this will help you develop a comprehensive understanding of the different techniques within ELT. At the same time, it will also help you understand various theorists and their point of view and their contributions as well, like Stephen Krashen's model, like Braj-Katru's the three concentric circles with inner, outer, expanding, and so many more. If you look at the previous year question papers, you will realize that a lot of questions are asked related to linguistics. The next overlooked area is world literature. UGC NET English exam has questions related to the authors and their works that are beyond British literature, American literature, Indian English literature, and well-known literary theories. These authors, they belong to Canadian, Caribbean, Russian, French, German, Australian Aboriginal literatures, and so many more literatures. This could get quite overwhelming, but they are tested because their works reflect multiculturalism, hybridity, colonial identity, and cultural globalization. All of these themes and topics, they are frequently tested in post-colonial studies. To name just a few important writers, within Caribbean literature, you have Derek Walcott, George Laming, Jean Rhys. Within African and African American literature, you have Chinua Achebe and Ngugi wa Thiong'o, Toni Morrison, Alice Walker. Within Australian Aboriginal literature, you have Patrick White and Sally Morgan. Within Russian literature, you have Leo Tolstoy, Fyodor Dostoevsky, Anton Chekhov, and more. And this is not the end. There are so many more writers from other nationalities and literatures that are frequently asked, like Kazuo Ishiguro, like Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I know it might sound very intimidating and quite overwhelming as to know how are we supposed to learn these writers and their works on top of covering British literature, American literature, Indian English literature, and the literary theories. But for that, you do not have to worry because I've already created a world literature lecture series playlist just for you guys, in which I have covered the top 5 most important and frequently asked writers and their works from world literature. This playlist will definitely help you in boosting your UGC NET prep. If I ask you that there are how many literary movements or periods in British literature, you might start counting from Anglo-Saxon age down to modernism. But what about pre-Raphaelite poetry? What about the decadent poets? What about Bloomsbury Group? Or Gothic literature for that matter? These are the very areas or the topics that a lot of students just overlook or skim through, not studying it in a serious manner. But these are the very areas from which UGC NET English exam has questions. So these movements are the most important in addition to the main or the mainstream literary movements or the periods. So what are these movements that you should put extra focus on? Let's discuss them in brief. The first is Harlem Renaissance that happened in the 1920s in the Harlem district of Manhattan. It basically talked about black identity, racial pride, jazz, and the key figures associated with it were Langston Hughes and Zora Neale Hurston. Second is Jazz Age. The term was coined by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Also, it was a 1920s cultural movement that talked about hedonism, modernity, the roaring 20s lifestyle that was aptly reflected in Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. Next is the Bloomsbury Group, a 20th century group of intellectual people which included Virginia Woolf and E.M. Forster that talked about progressive politics, feminist ideas, and rejected any societal norms and Victorian conservatism. Then also you have the pre-Raphaelite poetry. The pre-Raphaelite poetry is highly associated with Dante Gabriel Rossetti and Christina Rossetti. They focused on medievalism, vivid imagery, and rich symbolism in art as well as in literature. Not just that, but we can also talk about the decadent movement or the decadent poetry that rejected any kind of moral values, moral norms, or social norms for that matter, and favored sensuality, art for art's sake, aesthetic school of poetry, highly associated with Walter Pater and Oscar Wilde. Let's not forget magic realism, a seamless blend of realism with fantastical elements famously used by Gabriel Garcia Marquez for 100 Years of Solitude and Salman Rushdie for Midnight's Children. These are some of the most important literary movements that you should focus on while you are preparing for your UGC NET English exam preparation, and not just the mainstream literary periods and eras. And finally, one of the most overlooked areas in UGC NET English exam is the minor literary figures. A lot of students would just focus on Chaucer, Shakespeare, Milton, Pope, and other mainstream literary figures and think that they are done with their preparation. But that's not how it's supposed to be done. You also have to focus on other minor literary figures, especially if you have some time, because they are frequently asked in UGC NET English exam. Writers like Robert Burton, for example. Robert Burton is an English scholar and writer who is popularly known for his work Anatomy of Melancholy. Anatomy of Melancholy largely talks about different types of melancholy, their causes, their remedies, and it basically talks about his wide-ranging knowledge on this particular discipline. I remember a question was asked related to Robert Burton's Anatomy of Melancholy, basically asking that how many types of melancholies he is talking about. The answer is 2. He's talking about love melancholy and religious melancholy. You also have Thomas Browne's Religio Medici, which translates to the religion of a doctor. In this particular work, he talks about the intersection of science and religion. So if you are preparing for your UGC NET English exam 2025, then you still have some time. Cover all the writers that you can, major and minor included, and don't just focus on the mainstream writers. They are important, but at the same time, please focus on the minor writers as well. Don't skip them even though you think that they will be just asked for like 1 or 2 questions. Who knows? Maybe 1 or 2 questions are what is separating you from JRF. Now, you must be wondering that how am I supposed to cover all the major as well as the minor writers systematically for the UGC NET English exam? That's where my UGC NET English Literature classes come in. In my live classes for British Literature and Indian English Literature, I am covering each and every literary period in detail, covering all the major authors like Chaucer, Shakespeare, Milton, Pope, and so many more, so that you don't have to memorize them or rote learn them. At the same time, you will also get clarity on all the lesser known as well as the minor writers. From the most complicated dramatist of the Restoration age to the most important poets and writers of the modernist movement, I have got you covered for the chronology-based question so that no question catches you off guard. If you're preparing for your UGC NET English exam for June 2025, then now is the right time to build a solid foundation. Join my live classes because I'll also be covering the literary theory starting from structuralism down to eco-criticism and queer theory in a very simplified manner. I will be breaking down complex concepts and making sure that you study smartly and not extensively. The best part about these sessions that these are live one-on-one sessions, which means that I can provide you personalized guidance tailored to your needs, requirements and schedule, trying to fill the possible gaps in your UGC NET English exam preparation. If you want to know more about the kind of courses I offer, the sessions I take and the notes I provide, feel free to check out my TopMate page. It's topmate.io/Riya Gandhi. I've shared the link in the description box below, so don't forget to check it out. That's it for today's video, folks. If you found this video informative and helpful, hit the like button, drop your thoughts in the comment section below and share it with other UGC NET English aspirants as well. Also, if you're serious about acing your UGC NET English exam, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out my UGC NET English Literature classes, where we cover everything from major writers to hidden gems in a very structured and easy to understand manner.